If you were born with red hair, in large parts of the ancient and medieval world, people didn't think you were lucky. They thought something was wrong with you, something dangerous. Not because of anything you did, just because of what color came out of your scalp. And the strange part is, this fear didn't come from one superstitious town or one confused century. It shows up again and again across completely different cultures, continents, and religions that had zero contact with each other. Red hair shows up in ancient Egyptian religious writing, Greek philosophy, Roman slave markets, medieval witch trials, and Eastern European vampire folklore, all treating the exact same trait as either deeply cursed or strangely powerful. Today, natural red hair appears in fewer than 2% of people on Earth, making it the rarest hair color that exists. Which means, for most of history, almost nobody had ever actually met one. So why did something this rare generate this much fear? One of the oldest claims traces back to ancient Egypt. Early 20th century folklorist James Frazer, in his book The Golden Bough, wrote that red-haired men in ancient Egypt were sometimes burned as sacrifices tied to the god Osiris, their ashes scattered to protect the harvest. Modern historians treat this specific claim carefully. The evidence is thin, and it may be an exaggeration layered on top of a much simpler fact. In ancient Egyptian belief, the color red itself was already associated with chaos and danger, tied to the god Set. Red hair, being a rare and visually loud trait, may have simply inherited that same symbolic weight. There's also a strange thread running through Eastern Europe specifically. In regions near what is now Serbia, folklore held that red hair combined with gray eyes was an especially strong warning sign, a body more likely to return from the grave. Villagers reportedly performed specific burial rituals on anyone matching that description, just to be safe, regardless of how they'd actually died. Here's the part worth sitting with. If this is just a color, why did an entire civilization build religious meaning around it? Imagine getting side-eyed by your entire village because your hair looked like it was on fire. And it only gets stranger from there. The ancient Greeks took the fear in a completely different direction. In some regions of Greece, people believed that a body which didn't decompose properly after death, sometimes specifically linked to red hair and gray eyes, was at risk of rising again as a virikolakas, an early version of the vampire. Special burial rites were performed specifically to prevent it. This wasn't a short-lived rumor. Belief in the virikolakas persisted in parts of rural Greece well into the 20th century. Some villagers reportedly still held the fear as late as World War II. Greek philosophy piled onto this too. A text traditionally linked to Aristotle's school called physiognomics connected reddish coloring in people to bad character, directly comparing it to foxes, animals already associated with cunning and untrustworthiness in Greek thought. Then Christianity added its own layer. The Bible never actually describes what Judas Iscariot looked like, but medieval European artists, for reasons historians still debate, repeatedly painted him with red hair and a red beard. Over centuries, that specific artistic habit helped cement red hair as a visual shorthand for betrayal in the public imagination. By the time Europe's witch trials began in the 15th and 16th centuries, red hair had already been quietly coded as suspicious for over 1,000 years, and it became one of several physical traits used to accuse women specifically of witchcraft, contributing to thousands of executions across the era. A genetic trait, present at birth, treated as evidence of a crime. Here's the twist that makes this whole thing stranger. Not every ancient culture agreed. The Romans, during the same broad era, saw red hair completely differently. Some accounts suggest red-headed slaves, often from Thrace, were considered good luck and sold at a premium. The exact same trait, cursed in one empire, valuable in the neighboring one, which tells you the danger was never really coming from the hair itself. It was coming from whatever story each culture had already decided to attach to something rare. All right, rapid fire, because the actual science behind red hair is nearly as strange as the myths. Red hair is caused by a mutation in a single gene called MC1R, first identified by researchers in Scotland in 1997, meaning the actual biological cause of centuries of fear was only scientifically confirmed within living memory. Because of how MC1R affects pain receptors in the brain, redheads have been shown in studies to require roughly 20% more anesthesia to be properly sedated during medical procedures, a real, measurable biological difference tied to the exact same gene mutation people once called cursed. By the 19th century, a Scottish and Northern English New Year's tradition called first footing held that the first visitor to cross your threshold after midnight determined your luck for the year, and a red-headed visitor was specifically considered bad luck, centuries after the witch trials had ended. Genetic research suggests the mutation behind red hair may go back tens of thousands of years, evolving as an adaptation to low sunlight environments, helping pale skin absorb enough UV light to produce vitamin D, meaning the very trait people once burned each other for may have been a survival advantage in disguise. Studies have also found the MC1R mutation alters the lining of blood vessels, which is part of why redheads tend to bruise more easily and visibly after minor injuries or surgery. Today, the highest concentration of natural redheads on Earth is found in Scotland, where estimates suggest as much as 13% of the population carries the trait, meaning the very country later famous for its witch trials also happens to be the modern epicenter of the gene everyone once feared. Every one of these threads points to the same underlying pattern. Humans have a long, well-documented habit of turning rare, unexplained traits into signs of danger, curses, or hidden power, long before anyone had the biology to explain what was actually happening. So somewhere out there today, a 2% minority of the population is walking around with a gene mutation identified only decades ago, one that centuries of civilizations independently decided to fear, worship, enslave for profit, or burn at the stake. Not for anything they did, just for a color their body happened to produce. Kind of puts into perspective how easily different gets rewritten into dangerous once enough people repeat it. If you want to dig deeper into the history and the genetics behind this one, it's linked in the description. See you in the next one.